Hello, my name is John Sveck. Welcome to this All 24 video. Today, Coach Waterman and I have special guest Gavin Lake. Thanks for being with us, Coach.
Thank you, John.
So I'm going to give Coach the floor, and he's going to talk us through some practice planning concepts.
Sure. Well, you know what? First thing, I guess it would depend on the level that you're at. But what I'm going to use is kind of a professional template. I just some concepts that we want to look at. You know, a new practice versus say one from 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. There's been so much change in safe contact and Kawhi Leonard with load management, perhaps. The modern athlete is training year round. You know, it used to be training camp. They showed up, got in shape, and you played games. And Gary, you remember the old CIAU, 3-4 week training camps with 2-a-days, full
That's
pads.
right. Yeah.
You know,
I'd like to forget those, Gavin, to be honest with you.
Those days are so gone.
Yeah.
You know, now we're at the stage where everything we do is we're tagging up. We're tagging and practice with full speed. You know, outside of a training camp existence, or maybe a little bit of day one or day two, top off, small drill contact within a 5-yard box. You're never getting those full Okie drills anymore. So the evolution of the practice schedule, not only from the contact end has changed, you're also seeing from what I would call tradition-based practice years ago, where you would have the coordinator would have a team period drawn up of 10 plays, a skelly period at 10 plays, an inside run of 10 plays, and there'd be a goal line period, say 5 plays, whatever, drawn up. And then the offense or defensive coordinator counterpart would also draw them. Well, you've got a practice plan with 50 cards, or maybe 25, 30 cards, but you're repeating a couple of them. That used to be a template. And then you'd have the ones versus the twos, or the next man up, or the scout team players. Well, the one thing with that we found, and this was really cemented home with Marc Trestman, when you're going off cards, you're not getting a true, full, accurate look. Not only are you getting, typically perhaps an athlete drop off, your ones and your 3, 4, and 5 versus your scout team first-year players, you're also getting a serious group on one side and perhaps a not as serious group on the other side. You're getting an interpretation of a card up in the air with a line on it that maybe, Bobby doesn't know that line means that. And you don't have time in a 30-second window to explain that. You certainly don't have much time for a scout team or a coordinator meeting on day 1 or day 0 where you can explain all the opponent stuff to your scout group. So, with that, hey, if you can even get 12 guys on the field and the card is drawn properly with spacing, the whole jazz. So one thing that we went to Toronto Argonauts, and Marc really, perhaps the genesis of his game planning and practice planning came from Bill Walsh with the 49ers and their gold standard of practice. So there was a list of things that we went through, and we used his 25 years of 30 years of pro NFL experience in breaking things down. And we had maybe, if we were lucky, we had maybe 5 or 4 live cards in the week. The other cards were strictly in a walkthrough period before practice. So, what's up on the page right now, and then you're looking at, perhaps period 1, starting with a walkthrough with special teams, and then getting into an offense-defense walkthrough. And then that would be subdivided to, say 10 minutes. The D-line linebackers are an inside run. The defensive backs over on pass formations, coverages, any unique formations. Then the next 10 minutes is maybe a mesh period. The linebackers and the D-backs and the D-line are going over by themselves. And then maybe the next 10 minutes are simply just, the play caller, the coordinator going through the play calls and everybody just walking through their assignment before you actually get to the stretch or the warm-up phase. So you've actually taught and walked through the reps from the card with your play call before there's been any live bullets or anything where there could be something sloppy. We never wanted to see players on the ground. There always was a tap on the hips, or at least, palms up, tag off. And we were looking at the fits, the force, the fill, the alley. We were looking at the routes, the depth, the footwork, more so than just the schematics of the opponent's play. So, after the walkthrough, we get into your traditional dynamic warm-up. Then we would get into an individual phase, and this was your everyday drills. So this is your bags, this is your balls, this is your cones, this is your dummies, this is your pop-ups. Very, very traditional indie segment. Fast, fast, fast. Break a sweat, and Mark would say, get them in a lather. So that would be the first component. And then we'd split that up with like a fire period or a 4-play team period. It might be 4 plays, your ones-on-ones, and then 2 plays are your next man up. And that's full speed, live, your offensive call versus your defensive call. But then we would break up the individual with that team component. And then we'd race back to an indie period again. And then now this would be not just the EDS phase, but then you'd get further into the specifics of a play. So, hey, we're doing a lot of man work this week, so we're going to work more man work in this second period of indie. And then getting into the first group stage. So then you'd get into, say, a Skelly period where the O&D line would go into one-on-ones and pass rush. And that Skelly period was not carded. It was still live one-on-one. Okay, so because of the tempo and the speed, you have to be careful with your athletes because they're literally playing mini games, in every session. So you'll note that special teams is interspersed throughout as well, each team period. This is a day 1 component, so you're looking at a heavy first down or P and 10. P and 10 first possession versus 1st and 10 in your game planning, your scouting report, they could look entirely different. P and 10 might be more of a throw or some type of RPO concept, whereas true 1st and 10, that is it sustaining a drive? Are they still throwing? Or are they going back to traditional run concepts? So we broke that down, and you can see day 1 was a lot of that first down breakdown. And then obviously the special teams interspersed with kicks to win and competitive. The teams that were on the field, whether they had their bonnets on, whatever they were doing, and then the rest of the team on the sideline, and it was switch and run and switch, and very, very little standing around and actual old school pointing, we're doing this today. That was done in your meetings and your walkthrough. So that's a traditional day 1 setup.
I have a quick question. I mean, I know this is something that Coach Waterman focuses a lot on, but you mentioned these quick changes. How important is the emphasis on those transitions from one period to the other with those quick changes?
Tremendous. You want to simulate game conditions as much as possible. So Mark was the only one with the whistle. No other coach had the whistle. So Mark was in charge of the transitions and the tempo in the middle of the field. So he would quite often, it's a competition, and have everybody ahead of time ready to transition. It wasn't just a whistle, okay, drop what you're doing and go get water and then run to the next station. No, there was a transition, and you understand that you might have to get water in your drill period to be able to go from bang, bang and transition right away. If you were coaching during a transition, you were wrong. When that whistle goes, you drop everything and you're going to the next period. You're not going to let one of your assistant coaches hijack that period. So, and that was part of the coaches' meetings ahead of time. It was established ahead of time. Once you're doing what you're doing and a whistle goes, the head coach, next station, you're moving off. That's that. And that was at the pro level. So,
and Gavin, you're so right on that. I mean, you really have to break that down for your coaches at the beginning of your season and remind them constantly, because as most coaches are, they're perfectionists, and so they want that one last word or the one last coaching point. Right. And if you want to up tempo practice, once that head coach's horn or whistle goes, that's it. Right. And so you really got to condition the guys. And I think that's something some of the younger head coaches running teams, something to think about for them in their programs is, are you transitioning? How do you transition? I think that says a lot about your team.
Gary, you're 100% right. Like I just remember when I started coaching when I was in my 20s, it was more of an intellect of, what I know. And, you get older and that's less important. It's what the athletes or the kids know. So when I was young, it's very common, coaches are on schematics. Oh, this scheme is going to beat that scheme. We're going to run this offense and that's going to beat this defense. Or we're going to run this defense. They won't be able to stop it. And that was the young coach, vernacular. That's what you did. It was, we're going to go scheme heavy. As you get older, it's funny. It gets more into, do you have the player? It's more of a bottom up and less of a top down. So what can my player do, and how can I put him in a position of success, and then keep it going at a high tempo?